it's particularly curious because, even the Taliban didn't go around, Pakistan had given them very clear instructions to not go around massacring Sikhs and things like that. So, even when the Taliban was in power, they were horribly discriminated against and all of that. But killings, no. So this marks, I think it's too early to tell right now because we don't know what Pakistan's game plan is at the moment. This will play out, I think, over the next week or 2 weeks, we'll know what it is.
Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Today I'm joined by Abhijit Iyer-Mitra and we are going to discuss a few things. First of which is the dastardly attack by ISIS on 25 Sikh, innocent Sikhs who were praying at a gurdwara. Abhijit, welcome to PGurus channel.
Har Har Mahadev, as always, a pleasure being on PGurus.
Abhijit, I have a question for you. This is this attack seems to have all the footprints of LET and perhaps some other organizations emanating out of Pakistan. Who is really the one who's right? Is it ISIS doing it, or is it an LET, or who do you think perpetrated this dastardly attack?
So, one of the very, very funny things we've seen is that Pakistan is actually viciously anti-ISIS. Because they think this whole ISIS, they call it the ISIS canard, it's a creation of India to delegitimize them and the freedom struggle in Kashmir.
I see.
And the Afghan jihad and so on and so forth. So think about it technically. The moment you bring ISIS into Kashmir or ISIS into the Afghan Taliban, America loses any interest in settling with them. So they see ISIS as an Indian plot. Now, on the other hand, they also have this desperate need to, as it is, the US Taliban deal is in tatters, but they also have this need to further break up that deal. So they feel that, and remember, nothing happens in Afghanistan without Pakistan's aid and support. You can't organize. ISIS, I'm sure, can pull off an attack or two, but nothing of this scale with the, I've been in Kabul. I've seen the level of security in Kabul. Specifically, I've seen the level of security around this specific gurdwara because I stopped out there. They won't let us in, but, because we went security cleared and all of that. But, it had quite some security outside it. There were American Army, mine-resistant armor-protected vehicles outside and things like that. Because the belief was that, on one hand, it was secure because, there's this whole Khalistan-Pakistan nexus, wherein Pakistan decided that they will not kill the Sikhs in Kashmir to protect the possibility of restarting the Khalistan movement in India. So on one hand, there was the belief that there was some kind of protection for the Sikhs. On the other hand, they didn't want to take chances. So also, the other thing that I noticed was that the troops on that MRAP, they went so tensed up like they were in the rest of Kabul. They were fairly relaxed. But this is all relative, mind you. I mean, how much can you actually read of soldiers? It's more the body posture and things like that. So there was this belief that Sikhs had this protection. So Pakistan tried to blame this on us. This is an Indian creation. It's there to delegitimize legitimate Islamic freedom movements. And they're punishing the Sikhs, which kind of plays into the whole narrative of 1984 and all of that Pakistan likes to run.
But see, again, I'm having some difficulty. Why attack Sikhs and why now?
So you remember there's been two attacks on Sikhs at critical points. One was the Sikh massacre, I think was it Chhattisgarh, when I forget now when I think it was it Bill Clinton who was in town when I think it was the Chhattisgarh, I forget the name, but you remember the massacre I'm talking about,
right.
where about 24 Sikhs were killed. And the Sikhs also tried to say, no, Pakistan would never do this and all of that. And then there is this particular attack. I think this particular attack, the main reason for it was to somehow sow the seeds of discontent within the Taliban-America agreement framework, which is anyway broken up. So I don't know what was the purpose of this. See, I'm still to work out. It doesn't make sense, but Pakistan does things very often that don't make sense.
So maybe I should step back a little bit. You said that this place was well guarded. Then how did the attack take place?
This is what I don't know. I don't know if the security had been withdrawn or because, I did see a lot of Sikh shops and Sikh establishments in Kabul, which were not guarded at all.
I see.
So I don't know what has happened with this particular one. We still don't have the details because I asked around, about security. Nobody seems to know if it was still guarded or not. So it's particularly curious because, even the Taliban didn't go around. Pakistan had given them very clear instructions to not go around massacring Sikhs and things like that. So, even when the Taliban was in power, they were horribly discriminated against and all of that. But killings, no. So this marks, I think it's too early to tell right now because we don't know what Pakistan's game plan is at the moment. This will play out, I think, over the next week or 2 weeks, we'll know what it is. Because remember, RAW doesn't do this kind of thing. We don't direct people, organize attacks and things like that. We don't even have the institutional capacity to do it because it's been an instrument of state policy that we will not engage in terror. These are capabilities, very rightly, I believe, that we haven't built up. This is definitely Pakistani launched, but we're not going to know for about 2-3 weeks what the game plan was.
I see. Now, Pakistan also must be a victim of this coronavirus attack. After all, there are many people coming and going in and going out of Pakistan. Yet there is no news about what is happening there. Do you know what's going on? And I don't think they are medically equipped also to treat any of these things, right?
Yeah. So one is they're not medically equipped, but also remember, number two is that they're also very blasé about it. You saw Imran Khan come on TV and say, I can't afford a lockdown without realizing what the opportunity cost of not locking down is. So he's taking this very lightly. That said, remember in South Asia so far, it hasn't been particularly bad. There seems to be some kind of a northern latitude that where corona ends. So you look at Hubei, Iran, northern Iran, which is where most of the cases are concentrated. Hubei, northern Iran, Spain, Italy. They follow a certain northern axis, right up to America. In the south, where have you seen, like even in Italy, the cases are confined to the north of Italy. They're not the south. The south of Italy has suffered far, far less. Most of the cases are in Lombardy, Emilia-Romagna, some in Friuli, Venezia Giulia, so Venice, and Tuscany, so Florence.
Yes.
So, there's been this, and Liguria. So the northern industrial belt is where all the cases are concentrated. The south has had far less cases. Sicily is yet to report a case as far as I know. So, there's a consistent pattern here. There's a certain latitude over which this is occurring. And the southern latitudes, look at Africa, combined Africa, the whole of Africa has seen between 500 and 1,000 cases, something like that.
Right.
This is just pure speculation. I have to say this isn't my area of expertise at all. But what are we seeing in South Asia? Basically, this strain hasn't become mutant. It hasn't become virulent. And there's two possible reasons for it. Again, I have to stress I am not a medical professional, so I'm going off people that I trust. One is what I tweeted about 2-3 days back. There's this so far non-peer-reviewed study which seems to suggest that the virus has mutated into something that is less virulent on the subcontinent. On the other hand, there is also this belief which seems to keep going back and forth. Initially, it was said that, being a virus naturally, a virus is a living organism that is wrapped in a fat, in a layer of fat.
Right.
So which is why soap kills it. which is why heat kills it.
Right.
Which is why alcohol also, over 65% alcohol will kill it. Which
Right.
is why vodka will not, because vodka is 45%, but Listerine, which is over 65%. So mouthwash, surprisingly, also kills it. So there was this belief that heat killed it. Then they said, no, heat does not kill it. And then yesterday, both South China Morning Post and the Financial Times have run a piece saying, yes, heat does in fact kill it. So I don't know what the sides, I'm just speculating that these are the two reasons.
Right. So Pakistan, is it already hot? I mean, it's only March, right? How high is the temperature going in Delhi now?
Delhi, we're already about 25, 26.
Okay.
So
okay.
It isn't bad. It's actually been a colder year than normal, and the cold lasted a lot longer than normal, as normal compared to the last 4 or 5 years. It's going back to the old patterns.
You're absolutely right. Cold has lasted longer in California also. Even today, it is quite cold here. Please continue.
Yeah. So it's unusual because, every time it starts getting hot, there's rain clouds. Yesterday became hot. Today, there's rain clouds again. So, this nature seems to be conspiring to sort of cool it down again. But Pakistan would be approximately the same because it's the same Indo-Gangetic plains and the mountains end very quickly. So you have Islamabad, which is cradled in mountains, and then just a few 1-hour drives south and you're completely on the plains again.
Now, read me this puzzle. Why did Iran catch the coronavirus?
I don't know. I've tried to find reasons for this. I'm yet to read. Look, there are a lot of unexplained things about corona. Normally a virus will kill off like any natural thing. It's the law of the jungle, as they say. You kill the old and the young, the infirm and the weak, but you don't kill off the healthiest, which is the root of survival. It's the survival of the fittest.
Right.
Yet what we find is this one is killing off old people. It isn't killing off young people. We don't know why. So, some conspiracy theory suggests that there's almost a genetically engineered thing to get rid of old people in that sense, a non-productive population. I don't buy that at the moment. I just think it's one of the curiosities. Other curiosity, why is it getting virulent in some countries but not getting virulent in other countries? Why is it getting so virulent in Iran but not in Iraq or in Pakistan or in India? I mean, most of Iran is cognate with Iraq, Pakistan, and India. And yet, it's not getting that virulent in the neighboring countries. It hasn't gotten virulent in the Arabian Peninsula. It hasn't gotten virulent in South America or in Africa. And again, why is it getting, if you notice, there's a specific pattern. It gets virulent in countries that had open borders and lots of immigrants, whereas you look at the countries that had absolute closed borders and got a very harsh rap for it, like Hungary, Poland, and all those countries. There's less than 100 cases in those countries.
That's
so true. One is movement, but then remember, they may not have been migrant movement, but there was human movement because it was an open Schengen zone. So why is all of this not happening? There are too many unanswered questions out here, which I have not yet read adequate answers for.
So I have read in some unverified sources that some members of the current, whatever you want to call Irani Council, Revolutionary Council, are very sick, and in fact, may not make it. So is it across Iran, this problem, or it's just in some parts of Iran?
No, it's mostly in northern Iran.
Northern Iran.
So it's in Tehran, Tabriz. I don't know about Mashhad, but I haven't seen the casual reports coming out from the more southern regions like Shiraz and Isfahan, which would roughly be equivalent to what? Delhi to around Jaipur, that latitude, to put it in Indian context. So Shiraz and Isfahan would roughly come in that region, though they're much higher altitude, so they're much cooler as well because they're on mountainous plateaus. But mostly it seems to be in Tehran.
Now, do they eat beef in Tehran?
Of course.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I don't know why even I asked that question. Let's get back to Afghanistan. How many non-Muslims still live in that country, and what should India be doing?
Sorry, could you repeat? How many
non-Muslims live in Afghanistan? I'm presuming that according to under
other
CAA,
than
other than Muslims.
look, minuscule. There's a very, very small Sikh population, and that's about it. And they're traditional Afghani Sikhs. And they've basically been completely cleansed in that sense. There's this area. My mother, and if you ever met my grandmother and her elder sister, they were absolutely white. White as in if you put them in a frock, people would think they were Europeans. Because my grandmother has bright green-blue eyes, and her elder sister had Elizabeth Taylor-style violet eyes. And the story is that there was somebody in the 1700s, there was this gentleman who came from a place called Kafristan to the Maharaja of Varanasi, who then got sent to the Maharaja of Palakkad, to the Raja of Palakkad to serve him, and we are descended from that particular line. Now, in those days, it used to be called Kafristan because it was a pagan enclave in Afghanistan. These days, it's called Nuristan because from Kafirs, they saw the light. Nur is, light in Persian. So from Kafristan, it became Nuristan, and that's the story behind it. But there's literally no religious minorities in Afghanistan, unless of course you count the Shia Sunni thing. That's I don't really count them as minorities. But
I think broader strokes of
so just American foreign troops and the Sikhs. That's about it.
Sikhs are right, 5,000, 10,000, not big, right?
A few thousand, not even 10,000. A few thousand,
right? Yeah.
They were a big community once upon a time.
What do you think the Indian government is going to do? Is it going to just register a protest and that's about it? Or what's going to happen?
Realistically, what we do, also seem to think that these Sikhs would somehow be more adjusted to India. We don't know their level of radicalization, their brainwashing by Khalistani propaganda and all of that. So they might not even choose to come to India. They might just choose to go to Pakistan. So India will do the normal thing, which is register a protest. And I mean, realistically, there's nothing. It's also wrong to expect India to do anything more.
Okay. Well, sad. It's just, makes you feel sad that these are all people that are being cherry-picked to hack, and their only fault is that they are not Muslim. And Abhijit, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on these topics. We'll be back with more such interesting topics.
Thank you.
Thank you.